So I'm currently not really in the mood to be filming, and it's been a struggle all day, but I have no other choice. I have to film today. If not, I will not be filming for like the next 2 weeks. So we're dealing with it. Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella. Today I'm going to be doing the 20 questions book tag. I chose to do a tag because I haven't done one in a while, and honestly, my emotional well is running pretty dry. I'm quite exhausted, and because of that, it's hard for me to do stuff creatively. Like, it's taking a lot of brain power that I don't necessarily have the ability to give, so I figured doing a tag would be nice and easy. And I had some like bigger projects that I wanted to be working on this month. One of them, however, did go up and I'm happy with it, and it's me reacting to my first favorites video. The other projects are on the back burner currently because I'm exhausted, but that's not the point of this video. I saw Jessie from Bow Ties and Books do this video a few weeks ago and I liked the questions, so we're going to do that. I will leave their channel link down below and the creators video linked down below, and we are going to get into it. So question 1 asks, how many books are too many in a series? I've been thinking about this question for way too long. I honestly don't particularly have a hard limit at all for this question. There's no like definitive amount that would make me be like, absolutely not, if I find the content interesting. I think it's a hard sell past 10 books. Anything past 10 books, especially something that's still ongoing and being released, it's very difficult for me to be interested in it. But publishing doesn't really publish a lot of series like that anymore at all. Like, the only thing I can think of for SFF is like Dresden, and those are more like mystery books, so it's not like they have a huge overarching plot thread to my understanding, and I don't have interest in that series anyway. But 10 books is a hard sell, and honestly I break that rule anyway because I a few months ago started the Wheel of Time series and didn't love it, but I'm still, I think, planning to try a few more books because the series is so expansive. But that's, again, not the point of this video. Question 2 asks, how do you feel about cliffhangers? And I think I like them. Cliffhangers are very, very frustrating and I think very hard to do well, and that's why people are opposed to cliffhangers. I don't like when things are just kind of thrown at you to make you want to pick up the next book, but I like a big revelation sometimes. It really depends on the book and series. Ironically, a lot of all-time favorite series of mine have had huge cliffhangers in the middle of series, and if it's something I love, I'm usually pretty good at keeping up with it. So then I have like a year plus to wait in utter agony over a huge cliffhanger and like characters I love and just stressing about how they're going to get out of these things. I hate them because they hurt me, but I also sometimes enjoy the waiting. Question 3 asks, hardcover or paperback? And I have, again, 2 answers for this because aesthetically speaking, I hate that I've become this person. I really do. Hardcover. They do look nicer on a shelf, and I hate that I'm this person now, but I am firmly in the camp of paperback in terms of comfort, in terms of readability. I love paperbacks. This makes me very happy. Question 4 is wild. It's asking me, my favorite book. And to ask a reader their all-time favorite book is a very difficult question to answer. I can give you the very, very cliche answer and say Pride and Prejudice, but I don't want to do that. But I also tend to think of series and like standalone books as different, and they're different categorizations in my head. So an all-time favorite book series, my literal all-time favorite series, is the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, but it's the trilogy in its entirety. But in terms of a standalone book that I've read more than pretty much any other book, it is Pride and Prejudice. I read this multiple times a year via my audiobook, and honestly I read it so much at this point in time that I don't even feel the need to discuss it on my channel every time I do so. I just tend to go for it when I'm feeling very stressed or anxious and I want something very comforting. It's Pride and Prejudice. I love this book. I've read it like 10 times at this point in time. It's very cliche. Question 5 asks my least favorite book. So the book I hate the most is really hard to come up with, because when I hate something, I don't tend to think of it. If we're going to go and stick within the vein of classics, because apparently that's where this video is going, I would say Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I understand the purpose of this book. I understand why it's written the way it's written. And I know that it was like his 4th language that he learned or something like that. But I hated this book. Having to read it in high school, I thought it was one of the worst fucking things I ever read. The most recently, an SFF pick that I absolutely hate with a burning passion is Nevernight by J. Kristoff. I hate that book. I hate it so much. I read it about a year ago now and have a review for it if you're interested to see me rip that book apart. I absolutely fucking hate it. Oh my god, hate it. I know that's not like the worst thing I've ever read objectively in terms of like constructing of a story, but in terms of my passionate hatred for it, Nevernight definitely also fits the bill for that answer. Question 6 asks, love triangles, yes or no? I'm gonna say hell yeah, but not in the traditional sense. In terms of the old standard YA where it's this young, klutzy girl who is inexplicably drawn to 2 different boys who are both in love with her, even though she has no redeemable qualities. One has dark hair, one has blonde hair, both white boys. Don't give a shit about those sorts of love triangles, and I can't stand them. But I like the idea of a love triangle between queer characters, because I think there's a lot to play off of and a lot that can be done in terms of like messiness and exploring messy human stuff. And I think a lot more should end in polyamory. Question 7 asks the most recent book that you could not finish. And I kind of have 2 answers for this. One was an official DNF that I DNF'd last year because I suck at DNFing. And the other one was like a temporary thing because I was just irritated. The official DNF, the one from last year, I'm struggling to come up with the name, but it's by Sonali Dev, and it is a modern Pride and Prejudice like reimagining. And I wasn't mad at it because of like it's a Pride and Prejudice thing and I was so scandalized that it's not the same, but I just didn't like the writing. I found the book very difficult to get into. I didn't like the characters. I DNF'd it exactly at the 50% mark, and this book is so long and there was just, like no romance still to be hinted at all. And it seemed more like a dramatic family saga than an actual romance, and that's not what I was wanting from a book. I was wanting a romance at the time, so I DNF'd it. A tentative DNF that I don't even think discussed on my channel is none other than The Witcher. I don't count it as an official DNF. I kind of forgot that I even attempted it, but my hold for it on my library came in, and I had just finished an audiobook and I was still at work and had like little bit left to do in the day, and I figured I would start it and like also listen to it on my way home. And the opening scene had me feeling as if I was in a TV show like The Office or something, fully having a good Jim Halpert moment. I just needed to express how stupid the first page of the book was, and I was like, you gotta be joking. Like, are you kidding me? And I listened to like 20 pages and was just so irritated that I didn't continue the audiobook and I gave it back. I do plan to read it, probably read it physically, but needless to say, I was unimpressed. And this is definitely the stereotype of fantasy. I understand that this was written in the 90s and it really reads like it. Question 8 asks the book you're currently reading. And I literally just finished my physical read, my ebook last night, which was Blood Like Magic by Lisa L. Sambury. But the audiobook I'm still in the middle of and should hopefully finish today is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nian. By the time this goes up, I'm sure it will definitely have changed because this shouldn't be going up for the next week or so. And I don't actually know what I'm reading next. I kind of have a lot of options to choose from at this moment in time. So I I don't know what I'm reading next though. Question 9 asks the last book you've recommended to someone. Honestly, in person, I hardly ever recommend books because nobody in my family reads. And my best friends also don't really read, and when they do read, it is not the stuff I read. So in terms of recommendations, the most recent book that I wholeheartedly recommended was The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I have a review for it, so if you're interested, you can see why I recommend it. But I also think before this video goes up, my Jade War review will be going up, and I gave that a glowing 5 stars, so I also wholeheartedly recommend that book. Question 10 asks the oldest book you've read in terms of publication date, and I've tried to come up with a way to figure this out, and there is no way to do so. I tried to sort my shelves on Goodreads here via publication date, and they are mentioning publication date of that specific book. So it's got it's saying the oldest book that I've read is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, and that was published in 1977, but I've clearly read books that are older than that. I have no earthly guess because I don't read classics that often, and I don't pay attention to when they were published. Probably some fairy tales, but to be honest, I can't remember if I've actually read a lot of the fairy tales and stuff that I own, so don't know. Don't care. Oh, Shakespeare. Duh. Shakespeare is the oldest stuff that I've ever read. Has to be. Question 11 is the newest book that you've read, and the newest thing that I have read, the most recent published thing, is The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie Liu. Technically it has not come out yet, but by the time you see this video it will. And this is a bind up of speculative short fiction that I read as an arc, and I quite enjoyed it. If you like speculative stuff and short stories, I actually really recommend it. I think I gave the whole collection 4 stars. Quite enjoyed. This tag is just being mean. It's asking me to list my favorite author, and that's impossible to do. Also because a lot of the books and series that I absolutely love, their authors don't have huge extended backlists for the most part, so I don't really have, and I feel like to say that's like your favorite author of all time, it's usually someone with a backlist that you've read a lot of and love all of it. So I think I would go with Laini Taylor, and specifically because I love the way she writes. She is one of the best writers I've ever come across in terms of just prose. So by default, I think it has to be her. Question 13 asks buying books or borrowing books, and I'm going to choose a resolute both. My book buying used to be significantly worse. It's still not perfect, and it's not at the place I necessarily want it to be at, but it's a lot better than how I used to purchase books, which was wild, honestly. Thinking about it, crazy. But I also borrow books from my library all the time. Usually they tend to be audiobooks to help supplement my reading and stuff like that. But I also occasionally request books from my library. Today, actually, I am going to be picking up The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers and Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Did not realize that hold had come in so fast, but now I have another book to possibly read on my TBR. Question 14 asks a book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. I could pick Nevernight again, but I won't. I will choose Ninth House for this. I actually really, really, really dislike this book. I think it is poorly written and poorly just done. It was not executed well. I gave it 1 star. Everyone else loves this book or DNFs it, but everyone who's finished it pretty much loves it or gives it at least over a 4-star rating. And every time I see those ratings come in, it just doesn't compute. I think it is a very poorly written book. And that's a very unpopular opinion. Question 15 asks bookmarks or dog ears, and I'm obviously picking bookmarks. It's the boring answer. I have a whole thing of bookmarks right here. Question 16 asks a book you can always reread, and we're gonna go with the cliche again. I did not realize that was a question on this, or I wouldn't have talked about Pride and Prejudice for as long as I did when it comes to favorite book. I literally can reread this book all the time. I think in December I read it 2-3 times in a row. Can't exactly remember. I just finished the audiobook and started it over because I love it. But let's figure out something else. Honestly, a book that I always want to be rereading is, again, favorite series of all time. Are we shocked? But I have actively stopped myself this year from rereading this book. I think it would be read 4 for this one specifically, and the rest of them obviously less than that. I have other things I need to complete, and I've kind of gone a bit nutty with the rereading as of late. So hopefully by the end of this year I get to reread this series one more time, but we're almost done, thank God. Question 17, I should have chosen a shorter tag for something that I want easy, but anyway. Question 17 asks, can you read while listening to music? And absolutely, if it doesn't have lyrics. I don't think that's a revolutionary answer. I actually quite frequently like reading with music, ambient noise on. I also really love listening to video game soundtracks, especially if I'm reading sort of like epic SFF. That stuff I find really fun to do, and I really like matching the mood of the book that I'm reading to the music. 18 asks, one POV or multiple POVs? And I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but usually I like things with multiple POVs. And this is coming from me as more specifically, again, an SFF reader, but usually multiple POVs help expand your world and gives you a greater sense of what is going on. I think a great example of where one POV doesn't work, and we've seen it now with the TV show, but the Grisha trilogy itself, the written series itself, is written just from Alina's point of view, and it's told in first person. And frankly, Alina is pretty grating, and you don't get as good of a sense of the world as what we could. And the show, I think, proves it. I think the show vastly improved on the material in here because it goes outward and expands. And I'm not even talking about like the stuff with the crows, but even just having like Mal's perspective and what he's going through makes things seem a lot more balanced, and it gives a lot of characters more weight to them. And the show, it just does that better because one POV, especially first person, just no. And then of course there is stuff that I love that is from one POV, or like mostly one POV, like Poppy War, but you get what I'm saying. I prefer multiple POVs. Question 19 asks, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? It has to be multiple days. I very rarely finish a book within 2 days, to be honest, unless it's like a romance book. Those I tend to get through very quickly. But someone who can just sit down and read a book, honestly, is not of this world, in my opinion. It's so amazing that you can just sit and like read for 4 hours and finish a book. I can't do that. I think the most I can sit down and read for in one sitting is usually about an hour, and then I call it quits. It's either I go do something else or I go fall asleep. But just to sit there and read for multiple hours is impossible to me. I do not have the attention span. And question 20 is, who do you tag? I tag anyone, everyone. If you want to do this video, you're tagged. I didn't plan things, so I don't know who to tag. If you want to do it, do it. I feel like I just gave myself a lot more work than I wanted to. This video was longer than I intended it to be. But yeah, there's no but. I gave myself more work than what I wanted. Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on hardcovers versus paperbacks, because it's a hot button topic that I see not debated a lot, but people tend to have very interesting answers and reasoning behind that. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.